The Greystone Hotel stood at the edge of the old downtown district. It wasn't a luxury hotel, but it wasn't cheap either. The building had been there for decades, quietly watching the city grow around it. Most travelers stayed there for 1 or 2 nights. Business trips. Late flights, short visits, nothing unusual. Lucas arrived there late on a rainy Thursday night. His car headlights reflected off the wet pavement as he pulled into the small parking lot beside the building. The hotel looked older than he expected. Tall. Narrow. With rows of windows glowing faintly in the dark. Inside, the lobby was quiet. Soft yellow lamps lit the room. A quiet piano melody played somewhere through hidden speakers. And behind the front desk sat a tired-looking receptionist. Lucas placed his bag on the counter. Reservation for Lucas Carter, he said. The receptionist nodded and typed something into the computer. Room 312, she said after a moment. Then she handed him a small keycard. Elevator is on the right, she added. Lucas thanked her and walked toward the elevators. The hallway carpets were thick and dark red, the kind that muffled footsteps completely. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor was silent. When the doors opened, Lucas stepped into a long corridor lined with identical doors. Each one had a number. Lucas found room 312. Halfway down the hall, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was simple. A bed desk, a small television mounted on the wall. Everything looked normal. Lucas dropped his bag on the chair and turned on the television. The Weather Channel was playing quietly. Outside, rain continued tapping against the window. After a long drive, Lucas was exhausted. He brushed his teeth, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Sometime later that night, Lucas woke up. At first, he didn't know why. The room was dark. The television had turned itself off. The only sound was the rain outside. Then he heard something. Door closing in the hallway. That wasn't unusual. Hotels were always noisy at night. People arriving late. People leaving early. Lucas rolled over and looked at the clock on the bedside table. 2:18 a.m. He closed his eyes again. But a few seconds later, he heard footsteps outside his door. Slow. Walking down the hallway. Lucas frowned. The footsteps stopped. Right outside his door. For a moment, everything was silent. Then he heard something strange. A door opening, but not his door. The door sounded like it was directly across the hallway. Lucas opened his eyes again, because when he had walked down the corridor earlier, he didn't remember seeing a room across from his. Curious, Lucas got out of bed. He quietly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But now, there was something there that he was certain hadn't been there before. A door, directly across the hall, and unlike the others, it had no number on it. Lucas kept staring through the peephole. The hallway lights cast a soft, yellow glow across the carpet. Everything looked normal. Except for the door across the hall. He was sure it hadn't been there earlier. When he arrived, he clearly remembered looking down the corridor. There had only been walls and numbered doors, nothing else. But now, the door stood directly opposite his room. Plain. Dark. And completely unmarked. No number. No name. Nothing. Lucas slowly opened his door. The hallway was silent. Even the sound of the rain outside seemed quieter now. He stepped into the corridor and looked both directions. No one was there. The mysterious door stood only a few steps away. Lucas walked toward it slowly. Up close, it looked older than the other doors. The paint was slightly faded. The metal handle looked worn. Lucas glanced at the wall beside it. Normally, every hotel room had a small metal plate with the room number. But this one had nothing. He knocked. No answer. Lucas waited for a few seconds, then knocked again. Still nothing. He placed his hand on the handle, just to check. The handle turned slightly, but the door didn't open. It felt locked from the inside. Lucas stepped back. "This is weird," he whispered Dot as he turned to go back to his room. He heard something, a sound from inside the mysterious room. Very faint, almost like someone moving slowly across the floor. Lucas froze. He leaned closer to the door, listening for a moment. Everything was silent again. Then he heard it, a quiet voice, not speaking clearly, just a soft whisper. Lucas stepped back quickly. His heart began beating faster. He looked down the hallway again. Still empty. The hotel felt strangely quiet now, too quiet. Lucas walked back to his room and closed the door, but he couldn't stop thinking about the strange door across the hall. Finally, curiosity got the better of him. Lucas grabbed his phone. Then he searched for the hotel floor plan online. The website showed a simple map of the third floor. Rooms 301 to 320. Hallways. Elevators. Emergency exits. Lucas looked closely at the map. Then his stomach tightened, because the place where the mysterious door stood was shown on the map as a solid wall. There wasn't supposed to be a room there at all. Just as Lucas realized this, he heard the hallway door open again and the faint sound of footsteps. Coming out of the room with no number. Lucas stood silently behind his door. The phone screen still glowed in his hand, showing the hotel floor plan. According to the map, the place where the strange door stood was supposed to be a solid wall. No room. No hallway. Nothing. But now, there was clearly a door there. Then Lucas heard the sound again, a soft click. The door across the hallway was opening. Lucas slowly leaned toward the peephole again. His heart was beating faster now. Through the small lens, he saw the door across the hall open just a few inches. Dim light spilled into the corridor. Then someone stepped out. Man. He looked to be in his early 40s. Thin. Pale. Wearing a dark coat that looked slightly outdated. The man closed the door behind him carefully, and that's when Lucas noticed something strange. The man never turned toward the door again. He didn't lock it, didn't check it, didn't even look back. He simply started walking down the hallway. Slow. Calm. Almost like he had done it many times before. Lucas watched him disappear around the corner near the elevators. The hallway became quiet again. Lucas stepped away from the door. His mind was racing. Okay, this doesn't make sense, he whispered. The hotel was supposed to have a simple layout. Rooms on both sides of the hallway. Nothing hidden, nothing strange. But someone had clearly just walked out of that room. Lucas waited a few minutes. Then curiosity pulled him back into the hallway. Again, he opened his door carefully. The corridor was empty. The mysterious door across from him was still there. Closed. Silent. Lucas walked closer again. This time he noticed something new, something he hadn't seen before. A small metal plate near the bottom of the door. Not a number, just a tiny engraving. Lucas crouched down to read it. The letters were worn and faded, but he could still make them out. Service room. Lucas frowned. That didn't match the floor plan either. He stood up again. Just as he did, the hallway lights flickered. For a brief second, the corridor looked different. Older. Darker. The carpet looked worn. The wallpaper looked faded. Then the lights stabilized. Again. Everything returned to normal. Lucas slowly backed away from the door. Something about the room felt wrong, like it didn't fully belong in the present. Just as he reached his room door, he heard something behind him. The sound of the door opening again. Lucas turned slowly. The door with no number was open. Just slightly. And the room inside looked different now. The furniture inside looked older, like it belonged in another decade. And for a brief moment, Lucas thought he saw someone else standing inside the room, watching the hallway. Lucas stood frozen in the hallway. The door across from him was now slightly open. Warm light spilled out into the corridor. but the light looked different than before. Dimmer. Older. Lucas slowly stepped closer. His footsteps were almost completely silent on the thick hotel carpet. The room inside looked different. The furniture didn't match the modern hotel room he had seen earlier. The television was gone. Instead, there was a small wooden table, an old lamp, and a radio sitting on a shelf. Everything looked like it belonged decades ago. Lucas stopped at the doorway. "Hello?" he called quietly. No answer. He pushed the door open a little further. The hinges creaked softly. Inside, the room felt strangely still, like time had stopped there. The wallpaper was faded. The furniture looked worn. And the radio on the shelf was quietly playing music, soft, crackling music from an old broadcast. Lucas stepped inside slowly. The moment he crossed the doorway, something strange happened. The hallway behind him looked slightly different. For a brief moment, Lucas thought he saw people walking through it. People wearing clothes from another time. Old coats. Suitcases. Hats. Then the vision disappeared. The hallway was empty again. Lucas turned back toward the room. He noticed something on the desk. A guest registration card. He picked it up. The paper looked old and slightly yellow. At the top, the hotel name was printed. Greystone Hotel. Below that was a guest name written in neat handwriting. Daniel Morris. Check-in date, October 14th, 1987. Lucas felt a chill. 1987? He whispered. He looked around the room again. The furniture, the radio. Everything looked like it belonged to that time. Then he heard something. Footsteps in the hallway. Lucas turned toward the door. Someone was walking past the room. Slow. Steady. And suddenly, Lucas understood something terrifying. The hallway outside wasn't the present anymore. It looked like the hotel from decades ago. And the room with no number was somehow connected to it. Then the radio suddenly stopped. Silence filled the room. And Lucas heard a voice behind him. "You're not the guest for this room." Lucas slowly turned around. Standing near the window was a man he hadn't seen before. He looked to be in his late 30s or early 40s. Wearing a dark jacket and simple clothes that looked slightly outdated. The kind of style Lucas had seen in old photographs. The man watched him calmly. Not angry, not surprised. Just curious. "You're not the guest for this room," the man repeated quietly. Lucas swallowed. I'm staying across the hall," he said. The man glanced toward the open door, then back at Lucas. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Lucas looked down at the old guest card, still in his hand. "Are you Daniel Morris?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes." Lucas felt a chill. "That says you checked in here in 1987. Daniel Morris gave a faint smile. "I did." Lucas looked around the room again, but that was decades ago. Daniel walked toward the door and looked down the hallway. The corridor outside looked normal again. The modern hotel hallway had returned. "This room doesn't belong to any single time," Daniel said. Lucas frowned. "What do you mean?" Daniel pointed toward the doorframe. "Sometimes the hotel forgets this room." Lucas didn't understand. "When that happens," Daniel continued, "the room appears again, exactly as it was when someone stayed here." Lucas looked around the old furniture again. "So this room is stuck in the past?" Daniel shook his head slightly. "Not just the past." Lucas felt uneasy. "Then what?" Daniel's voice became quieter. "It appears when someone notices it." Lucas realized something. "When I looked through the peephole," Daniel nodded. "That's when it returned." Lucas slowly stepped toward the door. "So what happens now?" Daniel walked back toward the window. "The room will disappear again." Lucas looked confused. "And you?" Daniel sat down on the chair near the desk. "I'll be here until someone else notices the door." Lucas felt a strange sadness. So you're trapped here? Daniel didn't answer directly. Instead, he gave a calm smile. Every hotel has rooms people forget about. Lucas stepped into the hallway. Everything looked normal again. The carpet, the lights, the numbered doors. He turned around to look back at the mysterious room. The door was gone. Only a blank wall remained where it had been. Lucas stood there for a moment, trying to process what had happened. The next morning, Lucas checked out of the hotel. Before leaving, he stopped at the front desk. Quick question, he said. Was there ever a room across from 312? The receptionist looked confused. She checked the computer. No, she said. That space has always been part of the wall. Lucas nodded slowly. Then he left the hotel. But later that night, in the quiet hallway of the third floor, a door appeared again, and once more,